everybody. Welcome to the February 28th, 2022 Troy City Council meeting. This evening for our invocation, we have a special invocation by a lifelong Troy resident and member of St. Mary's Parish, Vera Petrucia. Ms. Petrucia, please come forward and do our invocation for us. And please rise for the invocation, and after the invocation, please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
This is a prayer that we sing at the end of every church service for all my life, and it's called Bože Veliké. Lord, O the great and almighty, protect our beloved Ukraine. Bless her with freedom and light of your holy rays. With learning and knowledge, enlighten us, your children small. In love pure and everlasting, let us, O Lord, grow. We pray, O Lord Almighty, protect our beloved Ukraine. Grant our people and country all your kindness and grace. Bless us with freedom. Bless us with wisdom. Guide into kind world. Bless us, O Lord, with good fortune forever and evermore. Thank you.
Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You can take a seat for now. You can go ahead and take a seat for now. Thank you. The Troy City Council meeting is officially called to order. I'll ask for the roll call, Ms. Dixon.
Mayor Baker?
Here.
Councilmember Abraham?
Here.
Councilmember Brooks?
Here.
Councilmember Chamberlain-Krenga?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Erickson-Galt?
Here.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Here.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Here.
All present this evening. First up on the agenda is a vote on resolution to waive the rules of procedure for the City Council. Rule number 19, agenda items submitted by council members, and rule number 4B, regular meeting order of business. This is a late submittal, and I'll read the resolution. Resolved that the Troy City Council hereby waives the rules of procedure for the City Council Rule number 19, agenda items submitted by council members, to add N1, council referral from Councilmember Chamberlain-Krenga. Proclamation to stand in solidarity with the Ukrainian American community in Troy during conflict in Ukraine. And rule number 4B, regular meeting order of business, to move the council referral item to the beginning of certificates of recognition and special presentations.
Support.
Moved by the chair, supported by Mayor Pro Tem Erickson-Galt, that we approve this vote on the resolution to waive the rules that's just read into the record. Any discussion? Vote, Ms. Dixon.
Mayor Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain-Krenga?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Erickson-Galt?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Motion carries. I'm going to turn it over to Councilmember Chamberlain-Krenga to read this proclamation into the record officially, and then at the end of the proclamation, I'm going to present a printed copy to you, Ms. Petrucia, on behalf of the Ukrainian community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. So just before I read it, I just want to recognize that a lot is going on in the world. And when I drafted this, I really wanted to speak to the health, safety, and welfare of our community. As soon as conflict happened, I reached out to all of my dear friends, both in Kiev, in Ukraine, as well as here in Troy. Martin Harliak, our former state representative, was one of the first who I reached out to. He's a leader in the Ukrainian American community here in Troy. And as I spoke with people, and I went to people's homes on Sunday. I went by and visited them, made sure Martin's family as well knew about this. And one woman, I stopped by her home, and she was just overcome by emotion that we would be there to just say that we are standing with that community. She is someone who is up every day until 3 a.m. calling and checking in on her relatives overseas in Ukraine to see how they're doing, to see if they're still alive. And so I wrote this just out of recognition of the welfare and the challenges that a large portion of our population here in Troy are struggling with right now. So this proclamation, standing in solidarity with the Ukrainian American community in Troy during conflict in Ukraine. Whereas the city of Troy is home to many proud Ukrainian Americans who bring their beautiful culture and strength to our community, alongside more than 39,000 Ukrainian Americans in the state of Michigan, according to 2019 census data. And whereas the Ukrainian diaspora community in Troy and the surrounding region make up one of the largest and most active Ukrainian American communities in the United States, and the community is understandably shocked and deeply pained by the recent invasion and unprovoked attack on the sovereign country of Ukraine, with many having relatives and loved ones in the country. And whereas the city of Troy is also home to many East European and Slavic communities with roots and family members in countries surrounding Ukraine, and have bravely and compassionately stepped up to denounce unjustified aggression and to provide humanitarian support to the hundreds of thousands of women and children fleeing conflict in Ukraine. And whereas the City Council believes in the values of freedom and democracy and the essential role that local government plays in building a democratic society. And so, speaking out on these values is important when they are threatened in the world. Now, therefore, be it resolved that Troy City Council reaffirms the values of freedom and democracy in the face of an attack on them, recognizing that freedom has never come easily, as stated in Troy City Council's proclamation dated June 1st, 2020. Be it further resolved that we invite Troy residents to stand in solidarity and unity with the Ukrainian community in Troy and around the world, and all those standing up alongside them for freedom and democracy in the world. Dated this 20th day of February 2022.
Thank you, Councilmember Chamberlain-Kranga. Ms. Petrucia, if you join me at the podium, I'm just going to hand you a printed copy of this to accept on behalf of Troy residents who are especially feeling the pain and issues of I'll be right there. So the proclamation was read into the record, but I just want to add this is signed by myself as the mayor, all members of City Council. It's a proclamation brought forward by Councilmember Chamberlain-Kranga, but it represents the sentiment of all 7 of us. So I'm going to present this to you formally.
Thank you.
And I appreciate you coming here tonight, and I'm very pleased that you were able to provide the invocation on behalf of Troy residents and also the Ukrainian community. So thank you very much. And I also know that we've got several people here this evening, including, it looks like most of our Global Troy Advisory Committee is here in support. So know that you are loved in the city of Troy, and the friends and family and relatives in Ukraine right now are also have the love and support of our community.
Thank you very, very much. This, I'm proud to accept this on behalf of all Ukrainians, and I personally have family in Kyiv and in Poltava, and talk to them every day. I had a call yesterday. I support orphanages from my home in Troy, and had a SOS call from them that they received all these children that just had the clothes on their backs. So we quickly got money to them so they could be fed. So it's horrific, and I appreciate everyone's support. Thank you very much.
So next up is C2. It's a service commendation for an employee that's retiring. I'm actually going to take a 2 to 3 minute recess in case several people who are in the audience tonight aren't planning to stick around, Glenn. It's not personal, but I don't want to have an interruption during your presentation. So it is your opportunity. If you'd like to leave, you're free to go now. I'm going to take a 2 minute recess. If not, you're welcome to stay also. Record here at Troy City Council meeting. Next up is C2. It's a service commendation for our economic development specialist, Glenn Lapin, who's retiring. So please, Glenn, come forward. Yeah, come on this side. I don't know why. It traditionally feels right. For whatever reason, it feels like we've had a good amount of retirements lately in our city. So it's getting harder and harder to read them each time because it's hard to lose such a wonderful group of people. And Glenn, you are I don't even know what to say. I love all of our city employees, but Glenn has been somebody who's been so consistent and rock steady through some tumultuous times, and he's always been very helpful to us and always kept a sunny, positive attitude to deal with things that aren't always so great. So I got to start with that right off. And Glenn is something else. So I'm going to read this proclamation, Glenn, and give you an opportunity to speak, of course. But first, I also want to say the fact that Glenn came tonight, I'm sure he's a very humble man, and this is probably next to one of the most painful things to do for him. So I'm going to make sure they quiet down a little bit. So.
You keep stalling.
I can stall a little more. I'll just keep talking about how wonderful you are, Glenn. How about that? You like that? And he's also got his family here with him, too, which I think is very special. So, all right. Again, this is a service commendation for Glenn Lapin as he retires. So whereas Glenn Lapin began his career with the City of Troy on November 3rd, 2011 as the Economic Development Specialist, Glenn graduated from the University of Michigan with a Bachelor of Arts degree in Sociology and Political Science and a Master of Urban Planning degree. Whereas prior to coming to the City of Troy, Glenn was the Director of Planning and Development for Detroit Renaissance from 1981 to 2009, including leading site management activities for the Detroit Grand Prix. During his stellar career, he directed urban revitalization and economic development initiatives for the nonprofit business leadership organization dedicated to accelerating economic growth in Detroit and in the region. After that, Glenn was the interim director of workforce development at Henry Ford Community College. And whereas, as the City of Troy's economic development specialist, Glenn developed, implemented, and managed economic development programs for the City of Troy. He led business attraction and retention initiatives, including the successful attraction of global companies like Aptiv and Flexengate to Troy. And whereas Glenn managed Troy's Brownfield Redevelopment Authority, leading to the transformation of blighted properties into vibrant community assets, including the MJR Theaters, Uptown Square Apartments, and Somerset Shops. Glenn also managed Troy's Local Development Finance Authority, including the extension of the Automation Alley Smart Zone. He coordinated Downtown Development Authority programs, including adoption of the Quality Development Initiative to encourage mixed-use, higher-density development along the Big Beaver Corridor. And whereas during Glenn's career with the City of Troy, he instituted the Troy Business Connect e-newsletter to keep Troy's business community informed on local business matters, engaged in community partnerships to bring valuable business resources to Troy, including PACE Energy Program, Tech 248, Economic Gardening, and Restaurant Relief Program, and established strong, effective relationships throughout the state and region to encourage local economic development. And whereas Glenn is a member of the American Planning Association and Michigan Economic Developers Association, he also served on numerous boards, including the Nonprofit Finance Fund Midwest Region Advisory Board, Detroit University Cultural Center Association Board, Detroit Investment Fund Pre-Development Loan Fund Advisory Committee, Detroit Mayor's Office Neighborhood Commercial Revitalization Board, and SEMCOG Community and Economic Development Advisory Council. Glenn served on both the Huntington Woods Zoning Board of Appeals and Planning Commission as chair. And whereas Glenn will retire from the City of Troy on March 31st, 2022, after 10 years of dedicated service, many commendation letters in his employee file, and the utmost respect from the Troy employees, City Council, the Troy business community, and residents. Glenn will now enjoy spending more time with his wife, Natalie, married 38 years on April 8th, 2022, and family members, including daughter Michelle and son Andrew, as well as enjoying traveling around the country and beyond, biking, hiking, and tackling home improvement projects. Now, therefore, be it known that the Mayor and City Council of the City of Troy take this opportunity to express their appreciation to City of Troy Economic Development Specialist Glenn Lapin for his professionalism and his many contributions to the City of Troy for the betterment of our community. And be it further known that the Mayor and City Council of the City of Troy, City Management, and the citizens of the City of Troy extends wishes of prosperity, good health, and happiness to Glenn during his well-deserved retirement years. Glenn, this is presented this 28th day of February 2022, course assigned by myself as mayor and all members of City Council. I present it to you begrudgingly because I really don't want you to go, but you deserve everything said about you positive tonight and so much more. And we thank you for your years of service to the City of Troy.
Thank you.
Give you an opportunity to speak. I'm expecting a PowerPoint with vacancy rates.
Yeah.
You have that?
Vacancy rates are currently at, no. Thank you. With those kind words, I may have to reconsider my decision. So, but thank you, really appreciate that. Let me first recognize my family who's here. My wife, Natalie, son, Andrew, his fiancee, Anna, daughter, Michelle. Thank you for putting up with me. Appreciate that. Thank you for this. To this mayor and to this city council, you've been so supportive of me and my work and of the business community as a whole. I really appreciate that. And that was especially apparent in the last 2 years when businesses were struggling and you guys came to the plate and passed a lot of legislation, ordinances that really helped our businesses get through a really tough time. So you guys stepped up. I really appreciate all the help you provide to the business community. I know they appreciate your work. Thank you, for that. Really appreciate that. Economic development is a team sport, and I've been very fortunate to work with outstanding people that work here for the city. They're just great. I've worked with every single department here. I can tell you from the top, from everybody, they are true professionals. They are experts in their field that, every single day come to work and work on behalf of this great community. So I thank you for all your help. Over the years, I really appreciate it. It's been great. I do want to give a special shout out to my partners in the city manager's office. It's been great working with them over the years, and in particular, Mark Miller, Cindy Stewart, Beth Tajnik, who may be watching, I don't know, but I've been with them for the entire 10 years that I've been here. So thank you guys, thank you. Really appreciate all your support and help, for these past 10 years. I've often said that many communities can say that they have strong business communities, but very few communities can say they have strong global business communities combined with great neighborhoods, outstanding schools, low tax rates, great parks, recreation department programs that are phenomenal, everything that a community and a person living here in the community would want, this community has. The unsurpassed public services that this community provides. There are not a lot of communities out there that can say that. Troy is definitely the complete package. It has everything that a resident would want or a business would want. And it's one of my favorite parts of this job has been working with the business community and working with and visiting businesses and talking with business leadership from all over the globe, all from different cultures and different backgrounds. And I asked them, I said, why did you choose to locate your business in Troy? You could really locate anywhere you want. And the answer I received back is, well, I own a house here. I live here. My kids go to school here. I shop here. I go to the restaurants here. This is a complete community. This is where I want to be. And they're not just telling that to me. They're telling that to their friends and to their neighbors and to their family back home in India, in Japan, in Germany, in France, in China, all around the globe where we have businesses that have located here and they chose to be here. They all know why this is a great community. It has so much going for it. I really, keep up the good work. You've been doing a great job. It's a great community. Keep it going. I wish you great success going forward. And thank you so much for the opportunity to serve you. I really appreciate it. So, thank you.
This is typical Glenn Lapin fashion, a class act. He's leaving talking about himself, and he just cut a commercial for the city of Troy. So he is absolutely still doing his job all the way till March. So I see what you're doing, Glenn, so thank you.
I'm still employed to the end of March.
We, again, appreciate, I know on behalf of Mark and the entire city management team, all of City Council, you will be sorely missed. We love what you've done for our city. We're thankful you have your family here tonight, and you've got a wonderful family to retire with and be with, so we wish you all the best, truly, truly. A lot of crying going on tonight. Well deserved for Glenn, for sure. All right, next up on the agenda is now C3, Troy Public Library Youth Area Renovation. That'll be a presentation to be presented by Val Grant, Senior Associate from the Integration Design Solutions. And I also see that we have Library Director Emily Dumas and Assistant Library Director Phil Quick here as well. So welcome, thank you for coming.
Thank you for having us. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. We're so excited to share this next step in the youth renovation process. It's long overdue, as you all know. We've been able to go forward with it thanks to the enhanced 2020 millage. And we began work with IDS in 2019, and everything got derailed with COVID, but we're fortunate to be working with them again, and they have put together a fantastic design for the youth room that we're very excited to be sharing with the council and the public tonight. So I would like to introduce Val Grant. She is a senior associate at Integrated Design Solutions.
Hi.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation. So yes, as Emily mentioned, this project started way back in 2019. Does this need to be turned on?
Yep. Just press left. Not working?
There we go.
There we go.
So what I have today is just kind of an overview of our process and schedule, and then just kind of go through the interior kind of updates of the youth library portion. So where we are, maybe there's a delay. So back in 2019, we got a call, and we're super excited to get involved in this project. And we met with the administration from the library, youth library in particular, and through that process, start to gather information. That's kind of our initial process. What are you doing? What works now? What do you want to change? What are our goals? And out of that, we also had some community meetings at the library. So what you see here is kind of a compilation of some of those exercises where we're sharing precedent images and getting feedback of what do people like, what do they not like. We have some drawings from some of the children that were there kind of describing what they wanted to see in a library as well. Another component of that is an exercise we call a user story, and this top one here is kind of our mission going forward. So what we heard the most was that this space needs to feel cozy, whimsical, playful, and have quiet, smaller spaces. Those were the things that were kind of lacking from the current library. Oops. So from that, we had a number of different iterations that we went through with the library administration. So you can see shapes of components are starting to move around, that we start to settle on where we feel comfortable, and that gets us into this kind of snapshot of what you're going to see today. So we have gone through that conceptual visioning, we have gone through schematic design, we are kind of in the middle of our design development phase. So we know where things are supposed to be, and we're starting to have some of those discussions about what does it look like, what does it feel like. And then I'll get into the rest later. So this is just more of a linear description of those same kind of phases. So it's in your packet. You can, spend more time looking at that later. And kind of an overall schedule. So as we're going through each of these phases, we have an idea of when this project might take place, but there's a lot of variables right now. So what you see in the gray at the end of March is our cost estimation phase. That's the most important thing for us to do right now, is to take that snapshot at design development and do a cost estimate to make sure that everything is in line before we move any further. So what does it look like? This is an overall floor plan, again, kind of numbered of spaces, but I'll walk you through each. So we have a new main entry. So at the top of the current ramp is where we'll be entering the youth library space. So that kind of expands that, that focal point a little bit more towards the center of the main circulation desk as well. And this is what that might look like coming into that space. You can kind of get a feel of that reference or an information desk right as you enter. Good visibility and sight lines. Here is that information desk. And again, some views from that space looking out into the courtyard. We have our private study and computer stations. So those were two of the kind of pieces that we heard were really important. Are you clicking or I'm clicking?
I'm clicking it when it doesn't go.
Okay. Yep, so I think we need to go forward a few. Next. Yeah, so here's that view back to those study rooms, and you see some kind of open study rooms on the left side there. And then we have a larger kind of gathering or reading space. So that was something that we really heard. You know, I want a spot to be able to pull up a stroller and grab my kid and just sit with all of our stuff and read a book. So having some of those kind of larger spaces to gather. So a view of that. And another angle there. Then we have our multi-purpose room, so the craft and kind of activity space. So that's currently over where our new entry is, so we're kind of shifting that further deeper into the space there. That has, we're looking at a lot of storage within that space, a lot of movable tables so that it can fluctuate with the different activities that are being hosted there. And then I think our last is the baby play area. So toddler baby play space was another big request from what we heard. So that's kind of tucked back a little more intimate type of space. There's also a nursing mother's room off of that area. And a view of that. So back to that kind of next steps, like I said, we're in this snapshot of design development, and we are moving into construction documents after we have that cost estimation. And that's where we're starting to kind of detail everything that it can be built. Any questions?
Thank you, Val. I appreciate this presentation very much. Any questions from anyone on council? I'm just going to start by saying something first, which isn't a question, but yeah. I'm sure for someone like Councilmember Abraham, who's literally grown up in this library, this is quite a, hopefully a pleasant knock upside the head, because it's something she's been very, you know, that building's 50 years old, as you know, especially
right.
On that side. And we also recognize we do have a 50-year-old library building, and as of right now, it looks like we need to make the best we can out of that 50-year-old building. So, and from my opinion, from these preliminary things, it looks like you're definitely doing that. So I think that's a very exciting thing. So I guess I will ask a question, and you can answer it how you see fit. But based on the schematics, and I know those are just drawings roughed up for kind of some early concepts, I mean, are we really able to look at something that dramatically different based on the
Absolutely.
budgetary
Yep.
proposal that we have. So that's my first question.
So that's definitely the intent. Like I said, that kind of cost estimation phase is this next check to see where are we. As everyone's aware, the market is very uncertain right now, and it's really difficult to kind of project too far out. So we are seeing that, there's times that we're starting to reevaluate some projects. That is it better to kind of hold and wait for things, or do you move forward with them? So I'm sure this project have a very similar kind of exercise with the administration.
Great. Any other questions? Councilmember Chamberlain-Crainga.
Thank you, Mayor. Val, thank you so much. It is so exciting to see the future vision of this. As a mother of a young son, and I've spent a lot of time with him in that library, oh my goodness, it will be wonderful to families and all those, and many of us here on council who have young ones, and to bring them
Yes, we're really excited about it, and there's quite a few members of our design team that are Troy citizens as well, so they're like super gung-ho and excited about being a part of this project.
Great to hear that. So the question was, I had, and I did actually raise this before, and our library director did address it, but just in case that resident might be listening, is someone had asked me if there's any other opportunities to provide resident input. And I know it was explained to me that there was a robust process, but maybe you can just clarify a little bit about the time period and that resident input in case, that resident is listening.
Yeah, so back in 2019, when we started the process, and typically with most projects, that's when you start to collect that kind of feedback from the community or from the users, we like to call them, of what are they really looking for, what are the things that are going to drive this project. So we did do that exercise. At this point, like going back and doing another kind of engagement session like that could spin things off in other direction. But that's not to say that if the city council feels strongly about that, we will definitely entertain that. We've often held more of a presentation as well, so similar to this, like a town hall kind of, or community, more presenting the design than gathering more input, but it just gives others an opportunity to kind of express what they feel.
It looks great.
Thank you. Do you have something to do?
Yep.
No.
Thanks, Mayor.
Councilmember Hamilton.
And you might not be able to answer this, but I'll just throw it out there. I saw that the construction phase currently, it said October to May. And this, I may need the library director to answer this, but what will that construction phase look like? Will the whole thing have to be shut down, or will you kind of do it in parts, or do we have any kind of idea of what kind of service disruption we're looking at?
So you might note that on that it said preliminary schedule.
Right.
So we do like to put some, disclaimers on that. Again, kind of tying back to what else is happening. What I can say is that October to May timeframe is ideal for this type of project, this scale of project, as well as, a lot of K-12 work really has to happen in the summer. So contractors are often looking for projects for that kind of October to May timeframe to fill their schedule. So we often see when there's an opportunity for a project like this, that's the right bidding and kind of construction timeline. That does not mean that the project would take from October to May. And once we get a construction manager, or most likely a general contractor on board for this project, they'll be able to give some more information about that. But we do see this as a single-phase project, meaning that yes, the youth library area would be shut down for the duration of the construction, and that really is going to give you the best value in that project. For the size of what it is to kind of partition that off and do that in multiple phases, you're really paying a premium on that type of work.
Thank you, yeah. Maybe we can utilize the online checkout option during that COVID has helped us.
Right, that is
really
one thing
adapt
that we
into,
learned,
so.
is that, the administration for the library has learned new ways to do things. So it has made it a little bit easier, or they've at least piloted and tested some things to try out.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Good question. Any other questions? All right, Val, we thank you.
Thanks
Thanks for a good presentation. We look forward to next steps, as always. That concludes certificates of recognition and special presentations. There are no carryover items this evening. There are also no public hearings this evening. So we move on to public comment for items on the agenda from Troy residents and businesses. We have one person signed up this evening. It's Sunil Sekri, resident, and he would like to speak on, says C3, but I'm guessing it's, we'll see. Sunil, please come up. Again, as always, you have 3 minutes. When the light turns yellow, that means you have 1 minute left, and when the red goes off, your time's up.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor.
Good evening.
Good evening, council members. Good evening. My timing is off because I was told to come in first thing in the morning before your resolution happens. So I didn't know these comments come up later. But I had talked to some of my friends, and I want to make sure I share some of the things they have from Ukraine. And my focus is on that. So first of all, I'm Sunil Sekri. I'm a member of your Troy Advisory Council. And to some extent, we are connected to various different communities within Troy. And in this case, I personally felt the suffering of some of the Ukrainian people here. Have gone through some of the similar things, so I could appreciate it. I personally think it's the suffering is coming from the invasion of Ukraine's privacy or their home, Ukraine's borders. And I think the other one is their neighbor has always been playing games within or disrupting Ukraine. And that has, for the last 8-10 years, a very negative effect on Ukraine. And they've been sustaining through that. And finally, when this act happened, now this is going to have a long-term impact on Ukraine. When they have economic disruption, they have destruction of the property, they will have impact on the kids and schools and hospitals and their infrastructure. It'll take a while for Ukraine to rebuild themselves. So I think it's an impact. So that's one kind of impact. The other kind of impact is the people who have families in Ukraine. So I have a friend here from my college. His wife, Yuhala, is from Ukraine. She is from a town. I think her town, I had written it down, is Kryvyi, is from Kiviri. Her parents are from Kiviri, and her grandmother is from Kharkiv. And she always is afraid, especially for her grandmother, because she's on the border town. Right now, the impact is on the border town, and she's getting very affected. She tries to make a contact throughout the evening, throughout the morning. She's worried about it. For the last few years, she has not been able to go there, first because of COVID, and now because of this. So she's saying, when my chance comes to go there, I don't know if she will have her home, she will have her parents' home, or she will have her country. So she's kind of worried about, and she's sad at the same time, angry, and deals with some of those things. My time is up?
Your time is up, Sunil.
Can I take one more quick thing?
Can you finish up in a minute? 1 minute?
Yeah.
Let me just get consensus from council. 1 second, I got to get consensus from council to let you finish. All right,
so there's
one more
another
minute.
person, Irene. Now, Irene her parents are from Mariupol. That is another border town. The city's power is cut. So she has her parents living on the 9th floor. She hears all this news, finds out that her parents are affected, no power, no heat, no food, or they're working from cans. Hospitals are working on generators, banks are down, so you can't buy grocery. And then you can't charge your phones. So it's hard for her to even get in touch with them. At times she hears a bomb and something else, and then she's trying to call and call and call. And her main effect, she says, is I cannot work. I cannot concentrate on my work. So in any case, just to summarize, I want to make sure that I show my solidarity to Ukrainians. And for today, I love to be a Ukrainian and support them. And that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Appreciate you coming forward this evening. That concludes those who have signed up for public comment for items on the agenda. Now is an opportunity for City Council or City Administration to respond or reply. Well spoken, Sunil. Thank you very much for sharing. Appreciate it. There are no postponed items this evening, so we move on to regular business. First up is I-1, Board and Committee appointments. I do have a mayoral appointment this evening to the Planning Commission. I'll move the official nomination to the Planning Commission of Toby Buechner for the term expiring December 31st, 2023.
Support.
Moved by the chair, supported by Councilmember Hoderick, that we approve the appointment of Toby Buechner to the Planning Commission for the term expiring December 31st, 2023. Any discussion? The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain-Crainga?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Erickson Galt?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Mayor Baker?
Yes, motion carries, and we thank Mr. Buechner for his willingness to serve. There are no City Council appointments this evening, so we move on to I-2, Board and Committee nominations. I'm not going to make any nominations this evening. Mayor Pro Tem, any from Council? No. Okay. That concludes Board and Committee nominations. There's no closed session requested this evening, so we move on to I-4, bid waiver, outdoor drinking fountains, and bicycle repair stations and parts. That'll be introduced by Dennis Trantham, our Facilities and Grounds Operations Manager.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Excited to be before you this evening to talk about the parks, which means hopefully summer is near and we are ending the cold and snowy season. Before we use a bid waiver for drinking fountains and bicycle repair stations, we currently use most dependable fountains for the majority of our fountains in our parks. And I'm pleased to announce that we will have 3 bicycle repair stations that were donated by the Troy Community Foundation. They'll be installed this spring. So we'd like to continue using that vendor. We already stock parts for the drinking fountains. We have tried a couple other ones and they just haven't provided the resiliency to the outdoors. We're looking at upgrading some of the fountains to bottle filling stations and continuing that process. So happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Dennis. Any questions from Council? Councilmember Chamberlain-Crainga?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for that explanation. With the bicycle repair units, is it just 3 that were donated by the Troy Community Foundation, or do we have more beyond that? Like
Correct.
how many
3 were
total?
donated by the Troy Community Foundation, but it is our plan to continue adding them to the parks as we go, specifically along the trails.
Okay, excellent. And could you let us know where those 3 will be located?
They'll be along Phase 1, Phase 2, and Phase 3 of the trail.
Oh, the trail.
Yep.
Okay.
So the dog park, Sylvan Glen, and then JC once it's complete.
Great. Thank you. Councilmember Hamilton, do you have a question? She got it. Any other questions? All right, someone like to move the resolution? Councilmember Hamilton?
I'll move I-4 bid waiver, outdoor drinking fountains, and bicycle repair stations and parts as printed in the agenda packet.
Support.
Moved by Councilmember Hamilton, supported by Councilmember Chamberlain-Crainga, that we approve I-4 bid waiver, outdoor drinking fountains and bicycle repair stations and parts as printed in the agenda packet. Any discussion? The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain-Crainga?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Erickson Galt?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Mayor Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Motion carries. Next up is I-5, contract amendment, janitorial services increase, also introduced by Mr. Trantham.
It's hard to believe that March 16th, 2020, when this resolution and contract was awarded, was the last in-person meeting that we had for 2020 before the pandemic shut down. So here we are again, requesting an amendment to the contract. From the city's perspective, this is the best option for us. RNA has provided tremendous service for us throughout the pandemic, responding at a moment's notice to deep clean, disinfect. The Jan sand industry as a whole has probably been impacted, probably the largest of any industry, and they're just struggling to recruit and retain staff. You can see in the letter that was provided by RNA that there's not a profit margin in there. It's solely to increase wages for staff. So it's our recommendation that council would amend the contract and provide the additional costs for them.
Thank you. Any questions from council? Want to move with the resolution? Sorry, Councilmember Chamberlain-Crainga.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll move I-5, contract amendment, janitorial services increase, as printed in the agenda packet.
Support.
Moved by Councilmember Chamberlain-Crainga, supported by Mayor Pro Tem Erickson Galt, that we approve I-5 contract amendment janitorial services increase as printed in the agenda packet. Any discussion? Councilmember Chamberlain-Crainga.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll just make a quick comment because this was actually my first full council meeting after I was initially appointed 2 years ago. So it's now been 2 years since I've been on council, and I remember this decision, and I remember this company, how it was a new company. They had a specialty in working in hospitals. That's how they were developed, and we knew we were going into something. We didn't know the full scale of it, and we really appreciated it. I remember Councilmember Hoderick made a great comment about just valuing their expertise and valuing that this is the right time, this is the perfect company that we need. And just given the situation, I'm very proud to support this because I hear that so many sectors are struggling, but especially this sector. And for it to be an increase that goes completely towards essentially retention and attraction of staff, and recognizing that if we put this out to bid, you would never be able to get something even that comes close to this increase that we do have to make. You would not find anything that actually would be even at this rate. It would be much, much higher given the situation. So I'm very proud to support this and very proud of the work that JNA does.
Thank you. Any other discussion? The vote, Ms. Dixon?
Councilmember Chamberlain-Crainga.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Erickson Galt.
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton.
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick.
Yes.
Mayor Baker.
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham.
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks.
Yes.
Motion carries. Next up is I-6 bid waiver, Thomson Reuters Police Investigative System. That'll be introduced by Lieutenant Nathan Gobler. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Here on a bid waiver item. The Troy Police Department has historically used a investigative software that searches public records to provide information for our investigations. This software is utilized by our investigations section. Over the last several years, we've noticed a lack of performance in the current software that we're using, so we started reevaluating what we had. We had gotten a trial with Thomson Reuters. They deliver a superior product that offers things that the other software packages do not offer. So we're seeking a bid waiver for that based on the competitive, there's about 3 different companies out there. This one was the best package that was offered, and that's what we're seeking to get.
Great, thank you. Any questions from council? Someone want to move the resolution? Councilmember Hoderick.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll move I-6 bid waiver Thomson Reuters Police Investigative System as printed in the agenda packet.
Support.
Moved by Councilmember Hoderick, supported by Councilmember Abraham, that we approve I-6 bid waiver Thomson Reuters Police Investigative System as printed in the agenda packet. Any discussion? Councilmember Hoderick.
I have limited, compared to our investigators in the police department, experience with both what you were using before, and I can understand. I remember where I worked, where we needed something more robust at one point, and made a decision to do so, to go to a new system. So, I appreciate that you are all looking at improving the quality, the throughput, how fast you can get things done, how detailed you can get them done, always looking for continuous improvement. And, bid waivers and whatnot, we do take these things seriously when we're reviewing the packets. But what you need to do, and I do understand that, when you all of a sudden have a system that's not getting you where you need to go, looking elsewhere and finding the best package. So I support your efforts and the effort that sounds like you did a good investigation about what would work. And thank you for, not only the PD, for the entire staff. You're always looking for the continuous improvement, the best value we can get, trying to deliver the best services, highest quality way, in the most effective ways with our tax dollars. And appreciate that. And that's why I'll be supporting this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Hoderick. Councilmember Abraham.
Thank you, Mayor. 2 agenda items later, we're talking about retention or recruitment of police officers. And to me, it's not just the fringe benefits, it's also having the right tools. And this is one of those tools that I think is very critical to having the police department we want to have to attract the police officers that we want to have. So to me, this goes hand in hand with that item, and we need to arm our police with the best tools possible. Time is of the essence when you're doing an investigation, and anything that can help take down any roadblocks into an investigation is something that, to me, how fast can we approve this? How fast can, we vote tonight assuming it's approved, and I've got to believe that it will be. How quickly can we, flip the switch to get it? Because this, to me, is just as important as any other recruitment or retention tool. So I will absolutely be supporting this.
Thank you, Councilmember Abraham. Additional discussion? All right, the vote, Ms. Dixon.
Mayor Pro Tem Erickson Galt,
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton.
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick,
Yes.
Mayor Baker,
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham.
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks.
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain Kringa.
Yes.
Motion carries. Next up is I-7, 2022 City Council meeting schedule, introduced by our Assistant City Manager, Bob Bruner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. When last we met, we discussed dates for a special council meeting to talk about neighborhood nodes. We weren't able to reach a consensus on a date, so we went back and looked at 3 Saturdays in March, and I am happy to report, I think, Saturday, March 12th at 8 a.m. Everybody was available to schedule the meeting then.
Not sure why you're happy for 8 a.m. on a Saturday, but we'll go with that one. All right. Any questions for Bob or Mark? All right, I'll move I-7, 2022 City Council meeting schedule to schedule that special meeting for the walk and talk and the neighborhood nodes on Saturday, March 12th, 2022 at 8 a.m. as printed in the agenda packet.
Support.
Moved by the chair, supported by Councilmember Hamilton, that we approve I-7, 2022 City Council meeting schedule as printed in the agenda packet. Any discussion? Councilmember Hamilton?
I'm really glad we came to consensus so everyone can be there. This is such an absolutely critical thing, our master plan, getting neighborhood nodes right. I know our community deeply cares about this issue, and we all need to be there. So glad to do it. My daughter will wake me up anyway. So it's fine.
Agreed. Good comments. Anyone else? All right, the vote, Ms. Dixon?
Councilmember Hamilton.
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick.
Yes.
Mayor Baker,
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham.
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks.
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain Kringa.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Erickson Galt.
Yes.
Motion carries. Next up is I-8, Police Officer Recruitment Incentives, and that'll be introduced by our Human Resources Director, Jeanette Menig, who I see is almost here. Hi, Jeanette.
Hello. So Mayor and Council, the next item before you is our initial steps in establishing some recruitment incentives to attract police officers. In order to stay competitive with other local municipalities, city management seeks to change the TPOA collective bargaining agreement to add enhanced vacation for incoming officers, an accelerated pay step progression, and commensurate changes for current officers who are below those levels. We also seek to adjust the vacation schedule for the TCOA members to ensure that TCOA members do not have a lesser vacation benefit than their subordinates. City management supports and recommends ratifying these modifications to the 2 agreements, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Jeanette. Any questions from council? All right. I'm going to move I-8, Police Officer Recruitment Incentives, as printed in the agenda packet.
Support.
Moved by the chair, supported by Councilmember Hoderick, that we approve I-8, Police Officer Recruitment Incentives, as printed in the agenda packet. Discussion. Councilmember Hamilton.
Thank you, Mayor. We all know how hard it's been to recruit police officers even before COVID. Just nationally, and Troy, the standards of Troy Police Department are so high compared to any police department I've seen out there. We only accept the best candidates, and on top of that, we have COVID, and now the economic fallout of coming back from COVID and still dealing with variants. So this is a no-brainer. This is exactly what we need to do to maintain our amazing police department. Gladly support it.
Thank you, Councilmember Hamilton. Additional discussion? Pretty much covered it. The vote, Ms. Dixon?
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Mayor Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain Craig?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Erickson Galt?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Motion carries. Next up is I-9 revisions to Troy precinct map, and that'll be introduced by our city clerk, Aileen Dixon.
Thank you, Mayor. For as many meetings as I'm up here, I don't often make presentations to council. But this is a pretty big topic, and so I really felt like we needed to go into some of the detail. So tonight, before you, you have the proposed revisions to the precinct map that is a result of redistricting that just happened after the census. So I wanted to go into just a brief history of where we're at right now. So redistricting, which is also called reapportionment, occurs after the census every 10 years. And during that, the state redraws the new district boundaries for the congressional, state, senate, and state house seat the boundaries for those seats. Then the county draws the new district boundaries for the county commission districts. Once redistricting is complete by the state and the county, the local clerk can begin the process of revising the local precinct map. So typically that's done while those things are happening. We kind of get an idea of where we want to move, if we need to move anybody, what our populations look like, things like that. So the last time that Troy's precinct map was revised was in 2002. In 2011, basically, we decided that we did not need to revise the map during that time. However, when we're looking at the populations of some of the precincts in 2022, we decided that we did need to split some of the precincts, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute. Since 2002, the city's voter population has increased by 10,000 voters. So that results in the need, in some of those populations, in some of those precincts are creeping up on being too large because of a maximum in the state law. Our current precinct map has 31 precincts and 20 polling locations. And to be clear, a precinct, according to Michigan election law, is a political subdivision, the area of which is embraced in its entirety within the confines of a city, for which not more than one polling place is provided for all qualified and registered electors residing therein. So basically, the precinct is the area on the map where you live. The polling location is the actual physical building that you might go into to vote in person. So a polling location can have more than one precinct in it, but a precinct cannot have more than one polling location assigned to it. Precincts, according to Michigan election law, are restricted to not more than 2,999 active registered voters. So in some of our precincts, I think you can go to the next slide. Okay. So in some of our precincts, we were notified by the state of Michigan, and it's detailed in your agenda item, that some of our precincts were creeping up on that 2,999 maximum. So we didn't have any precincts that were over the maximum or in danger of it, but we did identify some precincts where we were concerned that within the next 10 years they could exceed that maximum. So I'm going to briefly talk about each one of the precincts that we're splitting, and you'll see why we're doing that. The first one is Precinct 4, which currently has a population of 2,699 active registered voters. So active registered voters are defined in our qualified voter file as voters who are likely to vote on any given election. So Precinct 4 currently votes at the First United Methodist Church, which is on Livernois, just north of Square Lake Road. Next slide. We're proposing that we split Precinct 4 into two precincts. The west side of Crooks would be split and called Precinct 32, and we would move that polling location, or that precinct, sorry, to the polling location at Faith Apostolic Church, which is a current polling location on Crooks Road. The east side of Crooks in Precinct 4 would retain the number Precinct 4, and it would retain the same polling location at the First United Methodist Church. Next slide. The next precinct we want to talk about is the current Precinct 13, which is my home precinct, by the way, which is the population for that precinct is 2,689 active registered voters. And currently they vote at Bethesda Church, which is on Long Lake Road, just at the corner of John R. Next slide. We're proposing that we split Precinct 13 into a north and south half. So the north half would retain the number Precinct 13. The south half would be called Precinct 33, and both of those precincts would move to the Kensington Church on Square Lake. One of the big reasons why we want to move this precinct specifically is because the Bethesda Church, the area that we're allowed to have our precinct in that polling location is very small, and that population long ago outgrew that polling location. So it desperately needs to be moved. And you'll see a lot of times with some of these moves that we're making, it's out of a lack of other locations that we could have. So the number of churches or options, and I've detailed that also in the agenda item, the restrictions that are placed on us as far as where we can have polling locations. A lot of those buildings, we have a limited number of buildings that are available to us, and also a limited number of polling organizations that are willing to have us be polling locations. So we can't force our way into a building and make them be a polling location. We have to go with the offer to be a polling location. So these two precincts will be moving to Kensington. Next slide. Next is Precinct 22. Currently, Precinct 22 has a population of 2,665 active registered voters, and they vote at the St. Anastasia Church on John R., just north of Wattles. Next slide. We're proposing that we split this precinct into a north-south split. So the north half would retain Precinct 22, but we would move them to the St. Lucy Church, which is a current polling location at Rochester and Wattles. Then the south half of that would change numbers to Precinct 35, but they would remain voting at St. Anastasia Church. Next slide. Next is Precinct 23, which is a population of 2,705 active registered voters, and they currently vote at the St. Joseph Church on Big Beaver. Next slide. We're proposing that we split Precinct 23 into a north-south split. So the north half would be called Precinct 34 and would move to vote at the St. Anastasia Church. The south half would retain the number of Precinct 23 and also continue to vote at the St. Joseph Church. Next is Precinct 26. That population is 2,535 active registered voters. Precinct 26 currently votes at the Troy Community Center, which is right here on Livernois. Next slide. We're proposing that we split Precinct 26 basically at Rochester Road. So west of Rochester Road would retain the number Precinct 26. The east side would be changed to Precinct 36, but both precincts would continue to vote at the community center. Precinct 24. So Precinct 24 and Precinct 25. Precinct 24 was not actually identified as a population that was in danger of exceeding the maximum. However, because Precinct 24 and 25 both are in Warren Consolidated Schools, and Precinct 25 was identified as a precinct that was in danger, we decided to take a little bit from Precinct 24 and a little bit of Precinct 25. So we reduced the populations of both of those and created a new third precinct called Precinct 37. Next slide. So Precinct 24 is going to move to St. Joseph Church on Big Beaver. Precinct 25 is going to remain at the St. George Church on Maple. Next slide. Precinct 37, which is made up of a little bit of both of those precincts, will also continue to vote at the St. George Church on Maple. So those are the precincts that we've split, and some moved and some stayed. We do have a list of these 8 precincts that have not split their boundaries. Their boundaries continue to be the same that they were. However, we had to move them mostly due to the fact that we had a number of precincts in the southeast corner and not enough polling location options for them. So we had to push some of the precincts that were down in the southeast corner and in the mid-east area, move them north to, there were more options for polling locations up in the north part of the east side. And also we added 2 polling locations, one being the Salt Church on Livernois, and the other being the Bridge Community Church on Rochester Road, kind of across from Sylvan Glen. So to utilize both of those polling locations, and then also the other polling locations that we already had in that area, we just moved some of these precincts. Some of them are actually going to be a lot closer to where, well, actually most of them are going to be closer to where they were, to where the actual people live. So for example, precincts 3 and 12, they were voting at Woodside, and I've also provided you a precinct map, a proposed precinct map on your table. Precinct 3 and 12 were at Woodside, and we're moving them to polling locations that are very much closer to where they're actually living, along with same thing with Precinct 30. Precinct 30 was voting at the community center. So there are a few polling locations. We really tried to make it more convenient for people to get to their polling location, make it closer to their house. Next slide. So on February 16th, 2022, the Election Commission approved this precinct map unanimously, which is required by Michigan election law prior to council's consideration of it. They recommended that council approve this precinct map. So tonight, we're asking you to consider this precinct map for approval. If you should approve this precinct map the way it is, then I will be able to transmit the changes to the Bureau of Elections, which are due by April 4th. And then the map would be in effect May 4th, which is a day after the May 3rd election. We have a May 3rd election in precincts 24 and 25. So they make the map effective the day after the election to not confuse people. Then once all of the changes are made, every single voter in the entire city will get a new voter ID card because all of our district numbers changed for different districts. So, and I've provided in the agenda item all of the different district maps as they were approved by the entities that approved them. So everyone will be getting a new voter ID card, but we're also going to do a mailer to all the households. We're going to advertise it on social media, in the newspaper, Troy Today, and at in-person events. There's a Spring Fest that we're going to be at, and anytime I'm invited to speak at an organization to talk about election stuff, I reply yes if at all possible, or I send someone from my office. So everywhere I go, we'll be talking about this. We'll also have signs at all of the affected polling locations, whether it was just a move or if it was a split. We'll have signs like letting people know when they go to vote in person in August and November that their precinct has moved or that they vote in a different place. And then as well, we've done this before, but we're gonna really target hiring inspectors to act as greeters, which would be someone who would be standing, hopefully there's no lines, but if there were, they'd be talking to people in line at the polling location, letting them know, showing them the map, making sure they're in the right place, but also standing at the entrance, even if there are no lines, just greeting people when they come in and saying, are you sure you're in the right location? Your location might have moved. So we'll get that one-on-one connection with voters as well. And we're going to be doing this not just once, but it's going to be multiple times throughout the whole rest of 2022 until after the November election. And I think, next slide. And I just wanted to say special thank you to our new IT director, Alex Bellick, who used to be our GIS administrator, and the GIS specialist, Tara Russell-Weir, because they did all the maps and responded to me and helped me with all the splits, and it made it so much easier having GIS involved versus the old school way, which I remember because I've been here for like 100 years, of having a street map, highlighting it, and going line by line through all the streets and manually adjusting precinct numbers. GIS made it a million times easier. So, and I can answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, City Clerk Dixon. My questions were answered on your previous slide about next steps for notifying the residents. Obviously, I think that's probably all of us were wondering, right? That was the big thing. But it's not a question, but thank you for that thorough presentation. You did a great job with the slides for someone who's not used to doing it. So, thank you. Any other questions from council?
Just a quick.
Councilmember Brooks.
It's okay, thank you, Mayor. Thank you very much, City Clerk Dixon, for the presentation. It was very thorough. Yeah, I did have the questions about the next steps, but is there enough time to notify residents? You said they're going to be notified after May when there's an election in August. So I'm just concerned that that's a real time crunch for making sure they know where to vote in August.
Right. Unfortunately, we are operating under the timeline that's set by the Bureau of Elections, so we can't notify people. We can do some preliminary, this is coming, kind of notifications, but as far as the voter ID cards, we have to wait for the Bureau of Elections to enter all of that, and they're not going to do that until after a certain point in the May election cycle. So we are at their kind of mercy, but we will be doing as much preliminary notifications as we possibly can, just letting people know this is coming. We already do have some on our website, on the elections website, we do have some kind of bullet points on there, like a new map is coming, so when people go to get maybe their absentee application or something, they might see that, this new map is coming. The Election Commission meeting was the first start of showing what the new map would look like. This is the second part of that. And then after, if this is approved tonight, then we'll be able to start discussing it more broadly and also giving people a heads up in a louder way, basically.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good question. Mayor Pro Tem Erickson Gall.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to clarify, from what I'm understanding is if we approve this tonight, then that's a done deal, and the submittal to the Bureau of Elections is more of an administrative thing. My question is, does the Bureau of Elections have any ability to question what we decide tonight?
No. This would be our decision as a city. It's our decision what our map looks like. We do have guidelines as far as population size, where we're allowed to put polling locations, things like that. But as far as what our map looks like, it is 100% up to the city what we do with our map. And the Bureau of Elections, all they might say is, oh, you have a voter here that the QVF entry said something different, and we would have to make a correction to that, but that wouldn't necessarily change the map. That would just be a correction to that person's record. And those things happen every time you change the map. There's always somebody who their address got missed on something or whatever, and so we would be going through the map. As soon as it's approved, then we can transmit our information to the Bureau of Elections, and then they can let us know, hey, here's the issues that you need to resolve, and then we go through the correction process. But again, the map is 100% our decision.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I'd like to move the resolution. Mayor Pro Tem Erickson Gall.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move I-9 revisions to Troy precinct map as printed in the agenda.
Support.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Erickson Gall, supported by Councilmember Brooks, that we approve I-9 revisions to Troy precinct map as printed in the agenda packet. Any discussion? Councilmember Chamberlain-Cranka.
Thank you, Mayor. A couple of us, we were in a meeting this past week, and we got a good question about whether or not we could tonight make any further changes to anything. And I know my response was, we work with the best of the best, with Clerk Dixon. You are an expert. No one quite knows it like you know it, and we trust what you've done. And reading this very defined report that goes over and explains how you've come with what you've landed on, what you've landed on, it explains it very well. And I just wanted to call out, I loved reading about that collaboration with the GIS team and how you're able to even make predictions about those precincts where there'd be even further population growth in 10 years. So you use this very predictive, very analytical approach to your decision making. So just very impressed by that and very happy to support it. And I love seeing the communications plan with the residents. I know it's a short period of time before our election in August, but it's a great, robust plan of outreach. So thank you so much for that to you and your entire office and all that you do.
Thank you. And if I could just, which I should also mention, my entire staff worked on this as well. I mean, I did some of the bigger stuff, but we went over it, and I gave everybody a copy to stare at, and I'm like, find the problems with this, you know? So for Cheryl, Beth, Heather, Jody, they all do a great job.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Erickson Gall.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to echo what Councilmember Chamberlain-Cranka said. I'm sorry for butchering your name. We are blessed with amazing clerk, amazing staff at our clerk's office, and I just wanted to thank you for what looks like an enormous amount of work to put all of this together. I can't imagine how many hours you spend on this trying to figure out exactly where to draw the lines, working on finding those new polling locations. In fact, I very much appreciated how hard you worked to try to make sure that the polling locations are as close as possible. You mentioned Woodside Church. I always thought that was peculiar that people that were like right around the block from me were driving all the way over to Woodside to vote. So I very much appreciate how much work that you've done on this, and everyone in Troy should be happy that we have such a just above all criteria for our clerk's office. You just go above and beyond, and I just wanted to thank you for that.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Erickson Gall. Councilmember Brooks.
Thank you, Mayor. I was just going to say something really quickly. I want to echo the thank you for my fellow council members. Also, I think it was very pleasant that we have actually grown as a city over the past few decades, because a lot of communities across Michigan have lost population. So the fact that we are actually adding more precincts because of increased population is a good thing for our city, and it means that hopefully we're moving in the right direction, and people, see that and want to move here. So just a little plug for the city of Troy.
They must have been listening to Glenn Lathan.
Exactly.
Councilmember Hoderick.
I just wanted to mention too, for folks that, are maybe giving a stronger eye to the elections process, given recent years' conversations about elections, that in addition to a city clerk, city staff who work apolitically on all the work that goes on from the city, but especially related to the elections, that there is also an election commission with members appointed by council to make sure that both parties, political parties, are involved in giving this an eyeball as well. And I wanted to thank those two gentlemen for their efforts on this as well, and for giving this a look. So clearly there's a robust team of experts and professionals and people looking at this from multiple different vantage points. And I guess I just wanted that assurance. Trust in the election processes is so critical to our community and everything that goes on here. And I wanted to just give that added validation. The city clerk she included the minutes in the backup package that we review in our agenda packet. And I thought the citizens who might not be looking at that might want to be aware.
Thank you. Anyone else? Pretty much dittoed everything that was said, but thanks, Aileen. The vote, please.
Mayor Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain-Crainga?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Erickson Galt?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Motion carries. That concludes regular business this evening. We next move on to the consent agenda. Would anyone like to pull an item from the consent agenda for future discussion? Councilmember Abraham?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move all items on the consent agenda as printed.
Support.
Moved by Councilmember Abraham, supported by Mayor Pro Tem Erickson Galt, that we approve all items on the consent agenda as printed in the agenda packet. Any discussion? The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain-Crainga?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Erickson Galt?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Mayor Baker?
Yes, motion carries. All items on the consent agenda have been approved this evening. Next up are memorandums and future council agenda items. I have K1, an announcement of a public hearing. March 14th, 2022, a conditional rezoning CRJPLN 2021-001. Proposed Pineview condominiums, west side of DeQuinder, north of Long Lake. Sidwell number 88-20-12-476-070. Section 12 from NN Neighborhood J and EP Environmental Protection to NN Neighborhood Node J. That'll be in 2 weeks. Anything to add? City administration on that one? Just checking. Always check. All right. There are no other K2 memorandums. So next up is public comment for items not on the agenda from Troy residents and businesses. We have one person signed up this evening. It's Ms. Phoebe White. Ms. White, please come forward. As you know, you have 3 minutes.
Before you start, I'll probably need more time. I've got a kind of a speech impediment, so I have a hard time talking.
Well, let's do this. When we get through the first 3 minutes, we'll touch base and see where you are, and hopefully it can be easily decided, and we'll get consensus to give you the additional time. But we'll start with the 3 minutes, as that's in our rules, okay?
Okay, before we start, I want to thank you for your service, all of you. I've voted for each one of you, and I'm so happy to have this city council. And I rallied for Mr. Miller on Nextdoor.com when he wasn't among the running. I got real upset and went on there and said he was in there. He should be on the running. And we got him. So just so you know. Okay, we can start now if you want. Okay. I purchased my home in 1993. In 1994, the city of Troy put in a French drain system in my backyard, which is part of the rear yard drainage thing they had back then, and it worked. In April of 2006, I came home to find wood construction leaks in my property. My neighbor had wanted to do the same thing and connect to mine. And my brother, who worked in construction, said, you could have a big problem with water and don't do it. So the city honored my wishes for almost 10 years. But then in April of 2006, I came home to find these construction leaks, and I knew they had wanted to do this all along, and I knew they were starting to do it. So I called the police. So I gave all of you a copy of the report. They came out and told them they couldn't proceed. So then in August of 2006, the city came out and told me they had a right to do the work back there and connect to my drainage system. Those people did. And they said there was an easement back there in the backyard. So I didn't know, and I just thought, okay, I can't do anything. So then in March of 2007, the rains came and my property flooded. I called, emailed, and wrote letters to the city of Troy, but they wouldn't remove the drain connection. And I had come in 2019, you saw all that, and I was up there, and I emailed you pictures and everything. So I physically came here to the Troy City Council and spoke about the connection problem. And then in the spring of 2020, nearly 26 years after I had protested that connection, the city of Troy removed the connection between the two systems. Unfortunately, the damage was done. Okay, this is where I have to have, and you have to.
I understand. I'd like to propose giving an additional 3 minutes to Ms. White. Is that consensus? All right, you have 3 more minutes, Ms. White.
Okay, what I've learned since the City of Troy backyard drainage program had ended shortly after they installed mine in 1994. The Troy City Council had voted to end it. Therefore, it should never have been done on my neighbor's property in 2006, nearly 10 years later, long after it had ended. The streets and drains do not have easement in my backyard, and consequently had no jurisdiction in my backyard. If you remember, they told me that's the reason that they could do the work. It's illegal to put water from one property onto another, causing that property to flood. And even after I called, they wouldn't correct it after I had and wrote letters. Copious amounts of water being directed onto my property from 4 houses. My neighbors next door and the 2 houses behind were higher elevation. And the little 6-inch pipes installed were inadequate to drain all that water. The elevated table of non-draining water was pushed back to the house. With the freeze-thaw cycle of expansion and contraction, it caused my foundation and 2 retaining walls to crack. The tree roots of my 2 beautiful mature trees sat in water for long periods of time, rotting them. It is important to note the property was in a steady state prior to this happening. Afterward, I incurred property damages as a result of the City of Troy's unauthorized, illicit, improper, actually trespassing on my property, connecting the neighbor's drain to mine. The resulting damages to my property as a result of this additional water were my 15-foot, 20-foot tree, which had to be cut down. My foundation cracked and severely and extensively cracked. And I have videos too, but I sent you some. But my retaining walls cracked and bowed, and my cement slab sunk. I would like the City of Troy to resolve all these problems by reimbursing me for the expense of the extensive work I'm having to spend on my foundation to ensure the walls don't collapse. Foundation Systems of Michigan has to put in beams. The cost of demolition of my finished basement for the work of this to take place. The subsequent cost of refinishing my basement, which was finished before it was demolished, to its original condition. The cost of cutting down, removing, stump grinding, and for replacing the 2 mature trees. The cost to the work that I'm having to spend on rebuilding my 1 retaining wall. I just wanted to say one last thing. I'm a single woman who for 14 and a half years gave 24-hour care to my paralyzed mother, who passed away last March at 100. I was not expecting these expenses at my age. I'm having to live with the contents of my basement filling up the rooms in my house. This ordeal has caused me a great deal of energy, my valuable time, emotional and physical distress.
Thank you, Ms. White, for coming forward this evening.
Okay.
Stick to business for a second. That concludes those who have signed up for public comment for items not on the agenda from Troy residents and businesses. Again, now is an opportunity for City Council and City Administration response and reply. I'll start with this, Ms. White. I appreciate you coming forward and bringing this to us again. I'm sorry to see that you have to come to us again. I came in this evening, I saw you, and I recognized you and knew you. I remember from when you came in 2019. And I know that you did have some interaction with our Public Works Director and the city management. And I can't speak tonight, I don't think any of us can, to some of the legality issues that you've outlined here. I certainly would ask the city administration or city attorney to address some of those, not necessarily now, but give us a little bit of an interpretation maybe of some things just so we can have a better understanding. And it's a unique situation. We don't often have people coming before us asking for reimbursement for things. And so I don't want to say or do anything tonight that hurts either you or the city, I guess, to be quite frank. So City Attorney Bloom, you're leaning forward.
Yes, Mayor, I would just say that Ms. White, we have gone out, city administration has spent a great deal of time in looking into this matter. The city has also submitted a claim on, which was requested by Ms. White, that was denied by MMRMA. I'm happy to look and see if there's something new or something that was not previously raised.
Hold on just a second.
But at this point in time, unless there's something new, the city has looked into it. The city has been out there. The city has spent a great deal of time in trying to look into all of these allegations that have been made.
Okay. I hear you, Ms. White. I'm sorry. Unfortunately, it's not a back and forth opportunity, and we can continue the conversation and not necessarily hear from the table. Anyone else on council have anything specific to say this evening? I will say, recognize our city attorney always is going to speak with in a certain manner. Just note that I hear what you're saying, and I want to say that perhaps the claim was submitted on your behalf based on these allegations. So we'll find out. We'll find out, and we'll leave it at that. Recognizing you probably would like some more immediate answers, but we can't do anything from the table tonight. And do again appreciate you coming, and we'll look into this more from our perspective and see what can be done, if anything. Okay. Thank you for coming. Appreciate it. That concludes City Council and City Administration response and reply. There are no further council referrals this evening, so we move on to reports. Anyone have any comments specific to the reports this evening? All right. Council comments. Actually, I'm going to start with council comments for a second. I just wanted to kind of update council and the community a little bit. At 4 o'clock this evening, City Manager Miller, City Engineer Bill Hootery, and I sat in on a Zoom meeting with MDOT representatives and members of the I-75 mitigation team, I think they call them, or noise mitigation team, they call themselves. And I've said I said this during the meeting, I've said some things during previous council meetings showing some disfavor towards MDOT and some other things. I want to make it clear that I was impressed with the representatives that MDOT sent to this meeting. It was a large group of people with a lot of information, I felt like, and they definitely laid out the process and procedure for the sound study that there was funding approved for. I don't have typed notes, and so I'll be a little careful with what I said, but it likely is going to take a year for that sound study. It's 3 to 4 months for them to actually get a consultant to hire to do the sound study, and then it's about 6 months of the sound study. So we're looking at about a year for any results from that. They agreed to frequent communication with the residents of the process as we move along, and involving them where necessary. The residents had submitted a thorough agenda packet themselves that included a PowerPoint presentation that we've all seen. MDOT committed to looking thoroughly at that and responding to the specific questions that were in that PowerPoint. They will, like I said, the communication will be strong. They can plan to work with the residents as best they can. You know, our residents we have a very talented group of residents in this city on many across the board, but 3 people on this specific meeting were, sound experts themselves. So they're trying to interject and recognizing that MDOT's got their role and their job to do. But that kind of was the synopsis of the meeting. I haven't talked to the residents since because we came right into here, but I'm certain that they were happy with some of the things and felt like that they were heard, and it was a good, productive meeting. City Manager Miller, did you want to add anything to that? You were there, and like I said, City Engineer Bill Hootery was there also.
Yes, I know that you were very positive. I'm going to bring up a little negative note. So residents asked, like, if the study was done, is there a dedicated funding source to put sound walls up? And MDOT indicated that there was not a dedicated funding source. So if the findings are that there should be a sound walls, MDOT would have to then figure out the funding for that. We're a long ways away from finding out where MDOT would recommend for these walls to be.
Yeah, and they did confirm, thank you for that, Mark. They did confirm that the scope of this study is all of segment 2, any places where there are not sound walls now. That includes spaces where there's sound wall on one side of the freeway and not on the other. But speaking of funding, it might be a good opportunity. I know Councilmember Brooks, City Manager Miller and I and many of us on council have had conversations with our state representative, Koopa, as well as State Senator McMorrow. I understand you had a recent conversation with Senator McMorrow, and if you wanted to update on this as well.
Yes, no, thank you, Mayor. And I do want to thank you. I want to thank City Manager Miller and all of council and city staff. Everyone has really been working hard on this issue. But yes, I did want to give an update about another pathway forward, potentially for the city regarding the I-75 noise issue. So last week, Senator McMorrow did reach out to me and inform me of another process that we could proceed concurrently with the knowledge that the sound wall study and things like that will still be ongoing. And so basically what we can do is we can put together a detailed proposal requesting funds for the sound wall. And she will, her and her staff will basically go forward and try to procure these funds through state funds and federal funds, and hopefully, get that approved. Now, there is no guarantee for these funds to be basically provided to the city for this project, but it is a potential pathway forward. It has been successfully done in other communities. She pointed out something that was done in Ferndale where they wanted bike lanes along Woodward, and they were able to find the money for that. The benefits of moving forward in this way are, number one, it doesn't directly cost the city any money. It doesn't come out of our budget. Obviously, it will take some time for the staff to put together the detailed proposal, but it doesn't directly cost any city dollars. Number two is that it doesn't stop the MDOT from proceeding with their sound wall study. So it doesn't stop the other process. And number three, ideally, hopefully, this would potentially, be a more direct and faster process, more expedient, although we cannot guarantee any of that. And so I wanted to make sure that we thank, our Senator McMorrow for really working with us, working with the city, really making sure that we are aware of this as a possibility, as a way to move forward as a city, and really exhausting all potential options. And just really showing that, our senator, our representative, Padma Kupa, all of city staff, all of us, we're working as hard as we can to do everything that we can do to listen to our residents and really provide a solution. And like I said, this is no guarantee, but we are hopeful and optimistic, especially with some of the money that's out there for the infrastructure and things like that, that we can secure these funds. So we'll see.
Thank you, Councilmember Brooks. Obviously, I knew about this, that's why I handed it to you. I'm suddenly coming up with a lot of questions, and I'm sure city management have a lot of questions. So I'm wondering if the smart thing for us to do, based on my understanding of your conversation with the senator and some things I've learned, I think it's a little more complicated than just putting together a detailed proposal, because we don't have, there's a lot of questions, as I've spoken to City Manager Miller and City Engineer Hootery about, location costs and things that we don't necessarily have the answers to yet. I'm wondering if it's wise to maybe get consensus from council to direct city management to do some initial inquiries into this, and perhaps it can start with just reaching out to the senator's office from the city standpoint to see if there's a better example maybe of what she's looking for. I'm a little concerned that we could put together a proposal as smart as Bill Hootery is and as dedicated as the staff is, that I just think there's probably more questions that he would need, because I know he's used to doing very thorough type work. But at least as an initial starting point to get that ball rolling, see if there's something more that can be done from this standpoint, especially in light of the fact that even in a year from now, if the sound study comes back as warranting sound wall or walls, there's no funding source. I'm wondering if there's a way to have this be a stopgap or some kind of aspect to that. I'm speaking from the table in ways that I'm brainstorming, which is not good. So, but is there consensus, at least from council, to have city management explore this option a little bit more to see if it is feasible, and maybe we can get more clarification on what can or can't be done or requested?
Yes.
Yeah. Does that work, Councilmember Brooks? Does that sound good?
Yes.
All right. All right. Councilmember Hoderick?
I support doing that, first of all, let me just say. But I want to remind anyone listening in on this that this is not the city's project. This is not a problem created by the city. And our city engineer, with the bazillions of miles of roads, somebody could maybe say the actual miles of roads in the city that are county, city, trunk line, all related, is not sitting around doing nothing. Just a reminder that he's amazing. He's as fun to listen to on roads as it is City Clerk Dixon when you get her going about how the election processes work. This kind of a project document, I guess I want to clarify what we're giving consensus for in terms of the workload that puts on our respective team when this is not our project. Now, having said that, I do believe that I know he works well with MDOT, and the MDOT team, we've observed them do a design-build process, it is amazing how fast they did segment 1 and segment 2 and how they work that. They, meanwhile, have the expertise on hand. They do walls. We don't build highway walls out of the city. So just to clarify our consensus direction, yes, of course, if there's a path forward, all of us, including City Engineer Hootery, would want to pursue that for sure. I shouldn't speak for him, but we all know him well enough to know that he would want to do this. But I am wary of taking on a project, spec project, for which we are not manned or womaned for. And there is a cost that gets paid in terms of our resources when they go into that. So my hope would be that, like the sound study estimate, it came from MDOT that went into the state budget process. I would hope that the work would be a liaison, if we found out that we could pursue this, liaison work, but that the team at MDOT, skilled that does this day by day, would be able to, would be the ones to actually do that work. That it's not a small task that we're looking at doing in terms of identifying the specific dollars that would be needed. So I'm nodding my head consensus, and I'm only one person, maybe I'm the outlier here, but it's consensus with the caveat of I want to understand what the drain is on our city resources for a project that wasn't ours, for a problem not created by us, before I commit them. So, and I don't know if I have consensus of.
Fair enough. So my consensus was not to submit a proposal, but was to explore what that would look like. And I think that includes some of the concerns you're having. And if city management was to come back to us and say, this is going to take us a month, all hands on deck, and we don't have the team to go out and get these answers, and MDOT's not sharing them with us, I think that should come back to us before any more resources, person power, not manpower, Ellen.
Person power.
are expended. That said, if it does look like a viable path and
Yes.
Bill calls MDOT tomorrow morning and he's able to talk to people and they give him some information and it looks like something that's going to work, I think there should be consensus to pursue
Yes.
whatever is feasible and reasonable. I trust that City Manager Miller isn't going to take Bill Hootery's eyes too far off his other work to push forward on this.
Nor are we going to hire consultants at this time.
Right, fair enough.
I just wanted to make sure the spirit of our consensus was, fully captured. And also to the I-75 folks out there, hey, listen, this does not mean I'm not eager to try to find this path forward, but we have a fiduciary responsibility here. And I just want to be, I am very grateful that Councilwoman Brooks is bringing forward an optional path. And I want to be really wise about how we do it. Okay, that all said, I'm jumping up and down at the possibility that this could be a path or a parallel path. I'm all about it. But I want to be mindful.
Thank you. Councilmember Chamberlain-Craig.
Thank you. I just want to follow on those wise remarks, Councilmember Hoderick, and also want to thank you, Councilmember Brooks, for having that conversation with our senator. Thank you, Senator McMorrow, and of course, Representative Koupa for all your work that they've done. But also, I have a little bit of reason for caution as well, or questions. I have a sense, I don't know, that perhaps the senator is thinking about the IIJA federal funds. My understanding through my board position and our last board meeting with the Michigan Municipal League is if it is IIJA federal funds, that those rules are not fully out yet, as well as part of a requirement is there needs to be a coordinating office that has to be set up in the governor's office first, so there's different layers of things that actually have to happen before we're ever going to get to a place of figuring out what could be done with those infrastructure funds. So I don't know if it is those sorts of funds that are being considered, but I know that there's a process to that as well. We're still kind of figuring out what could be used for that, but maybe it's something else creative. And so I support the idea of exploring it, but I think like Councilmember Hoderick is, if it turns into like it spins too much, is, of course we don't want to take too much time away from city management and the work of the city. Switching topics just a little bit is, I just wanted to just point out, as a time of so much turmoil, I just really wanted to thank the Stage Nature Center. They started their annual kind of tree tapping, and our family really enjoyed being out there this weekend. It was just such a solace to be on those trails and to be in nature, and just encourage the residents this is the time of year they do their maple syrup time, where they're collecting that maple syrup and making it, and they invite residents to come in and learn about the process. So encourage folks to come out there, and also to remember they just today kicked off their wellness and nature program. And I said maybe after the budget season I'll come out there. That'd be a nice way to relax and de-stress after all that. So just, I love all that they're doing in our community, and it's a reminder of, the beauty of the nature that we have, the city. We have so many things to offer. And speaking of that too, my husband pointed out, I got my toy today, and it has pickleball on the front cover, so go pickleball, all of our pickleball fans. And also, of course, cricket as well, two of our sports that we're advocating, more and more space for residents to enjoy. And then also just want to end with kind of going back to Ukraine. And again, to echo that, and thank my colleagues for your support. I really wanted to pitch this as this is about our residents. It's about my neighbors, literally just down the road from me, who are impacted and have family members who are impacted. And I think many of you know, of course, I care deeply. I lived in that part of the world. I worked on it for over a decade. I actually lived in the very western border of Ukraine in the Republic of Moldova, in Pridnestrovia, Transnistria. It's also a separatist region with Russian troops. Also a bit concerned about that region. I lived in a Ukrainian village in that area as well as in industrial cities. And so spent a long time and was very blessed to be able to work in our embassy, to advise national security officials, foreign policy officials on those conflicts. So of course it's very important to me. And my own family, and that's why I wanted to call out. I know many in our community, even those who are not from Ukraine, are really stepping up and have relatives or they themselves here in Troy. They're sending humanitarian aid. And my husband's own family, his uncle, runs a Christian charity and quickly has pivoted and is collecting aid. And tomorrow he's driving 3 hours up to the border and delivering humanitarian aid to refugees. And of course, today we saw that refugees are at over 500,000 and predicted to be up to 2 million or more. And we hope, our family, we had talked about going to the region for spring break, but we may indeed, if it's safe. My husband has work over there that we'll go over there and we'll try to see if we can lend a hand as well and kind of be on the ground. I still speak some Russian, speak Romanian, and hopefully can put that to use to really help the community. So thank you for all your support.
Thank you, Councilmember Chamberlain-Krenga. Additional council comments? Councilman or Member Hoderick?
Summer, just to pivot from that, which is hard, and Polish-Ukrainian by marriage, so it's hitting all of us. I don't want to be insensitive to the topic. But for a specific challenge that is happening, I know everywhere in terms of hiring as we come out of COVID, want to just draw, folks might have seen their City of Troy Recreation Guide and looking at classes, and on page 25, I just want to put a little shout out for the hiring that's going on specifically to the Troy Family Aquatic Center. We love our aquatic center. Staffing is a challenge, and our facility hours are going to be dictated by our staffing levels and our ability to hire staff, specifically lifeguards. Hiring lifeguards, every pool, every entity that needs lifeguards in our area is struggling with that. So just want to draw attention to troymid.gov/job openings, and you would see online where the hiring fairs are for lifeguards, swim instructors, cashiers, day camp coordinators, whatnot. There's some really nice summer job opportunities for folks. And we really need folks to consider looking at that, spread the word to friends and family that might be interested in those kinds of roles. The success of our aquatic center depends on our ability to staff it and staff it really well with high-quality people.
Thank you, Councilmember Hoderick. Any other council comments? I advanced some comments. 2022 State of the City address will be Wednesday, May 18th, 2022. Time and place to be determined and advertised at a future date. But that concludes council comments this evening. There's no one signed up for public comment for items on or not on the agenda for members of the public outside of Troy. And there's no closed session this evening. So with that, we are adjourned.